Fine.
Okay.
Um, Send you the link, no? Sa ating messenger.
Yep. Send it to me. Yeah.
Si DA Mocha already spoke about, well, not this, but she said something against, not against, but she was pretty much addressing the mayor of Manila about the
Si
whole
Isko.
bakuna thing. I just saw the video kasi that's why it got me thinking also na maybe it's about time talaga that people uh you know try to have a more realistic uh point of view towards their politicians na they're not gods.
Yeah.
Diba?
Yeah.
You're supposed to look at it na they're public servants. They're susceptible to making mistakes as anybody. So, and if ever they do say something in public, you have to take it with a grain of salt because obviously, chances are they're just politicizing things and they want to run for office or higher office for that matter. Kini ba, nanay
Yeah. I got it. I
link
got it.
diri. You got it na? Okay, all right. Okay, um, we're all set, no?
Yep.
Let
I'm
me
sharing it
see
on my
if
different platforms.
okay, all right. Okay, here we go. And we are off. Hey, mayong gabi sa inyong tanan. Good evening to everyone watching Istoryang Futbolero. My name is Ron Poblete. I'm your host, and our co-host for tonight's special Friday Constipation or Constipation Friday is Orion Perez Dumdum live from Singapore. Hi, Orion.
Ngayong gabi eh.
Mayong gabi, bye. Welcome, welcome. You know, so if you can only go back in time
Yeah.
and get songwriting to where it was once. Very prolific in kuya gid ang music tong una, no?
Maobay.
Mao. All right, welcome to Istoryang Futbolero, and tonight we will start with Nas Daily. Kay si Orion had a few things that he wanted to discuss about that issue. If you're not familiar with Nas Daily, he's this guy. He's an Israeli Palestinian, no?
He's a
Who
Palestinian
started,
Israeli. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he started a blog before, and he used to have this 1 minute videos that he would share on social media, and it's become very popular, especially here in the Philippines because he does feature the Philippines a lot on his blogs, and he would do 1 minute blogs here in the Philippines, and that in a way promoted our tourism. It helped. Getting
Agreed.
took a little peek in what's happening here in the Philippines. So he's become very popular, and he's set shop. He says he's been able to set up shop here in the Philippines as well. And he's been doing what's this? Like master classes for.
Master
Uh,
classes. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, his original intention was he wanted to set up in the Philippines as his main office, that he would be based in the Philippines.
oh yeah.
He wanted. That's what he wanted.
Okay.
Back when he was not, he was just starting out, and he first came to the Philippines. He said, "I like it here. It's like like things work, blah blah blah." And then he was thinking of really setting up in the Philippines. Now he never talked about it, but I think most likely natamaan siya ng 60-40 or whatever other stuff, and that's why he ended
60,
up
40.
yeah, and he ended up going to Singapore, which is very
Oh my
open.
gosh.
Yeah, so very open. Now he set up in Singapore, and then when COVID hit, he felt that maybe it's better to be based in UAE. So he went to the UAE because he speaks Arabic anyway, and he's more. I think it's more open. Their economy. They're parang they don't have many of the restrictions that here in Singapore we have, where you're always supposed to wear your mask. Blah blah blah. There's more restrictions here, whereas in UAE, wala masyado. I mean, there are, but then people are free to travel to the UAE,
Right.
and then but he still has a bulk of his operations here in Singapore. So a lot of the stuff is still here. It's just that he is actually based in the UAE right now.
We also
So,
should
yeah.
take note, rin, Orion, that he does employ Filipinos in his production team. He has a lot of very talented
Yes.
video editors and people who can actually, because I think part of his advocacy is to teach people how to do what he's been doing. So he
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
share the whatever it is that he's learned blogging for like more than what 2, 3, or 4 years already. He's
Yeah,
been
for a
doing this
few
and
years.
he's been very successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for a fee, you can actually learn a thing or two on how to do
Yes,
it.
indeed, indeed, indeed.
So
So
that's just
anyway, I think the big problem is that now there's this controversy, which I honestly think is the result of miscommunications and people, Pinoys, having some kind of major knee-jerk reaction against him without fully understanding what really happened. So parang, I think it started off with the Jessica Soho interview,
yeah.
diba? The
And
Jessica Soho interview, parang
and like you
Go
said, Orion, kasi the combination of him being somebody who's internationally well renowned because of his presence on social media. Tapos na interview pa siya ni Jessica Soho. And sometimes merong konting may conceived notion paminsan yung mga supporters ng administration towards GMA being a little bit slanted. And now the way it was the interview was conducted by Jessica Soho, it appeared that what his statement in the end of that interview was political. Na dapat daw ay magalit. Ano ba yung term mo
no.
na sinabi?
So basically, what happened was he was just asked a very simple question: what motivates you? And he said, "Well, I got motivated to make these videos because I was angry that things weren't right. I come from a group that is kind of oppressed because he's Palestinian, etc.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make things change because I was angry that the things were always so unfair. So that motivated him to do his videos. And then he said to Filipinos that and I think that might work as well for Filipinos, that it might do well if you also get angry when things are wrong. So if you see something that's wrong, you be angry about it. At least when you're angry, you will likely do something about it. So it's a very innocent thing. And within the wider context of the interview, he wasn't there saying anything, you must topple the government. He didn't say anything like that. It's just if you see something wrong, if you see someone who is cutting the queue, it's actually something like that. See someone cutting the queue, tell him off. Hey, that's wrong. It's something to that effect. He wasn't saying go rebel against the government. He didn't say that. But GMA News, they took a snippet of what he said, they shortened it, they paraphrased it, they put it in parang clickbait poster, diba? And then it angered a lot of DDS. And then I said, hey guys, have you even watched the video? This guy is not against us. I haven't seen him say anything against Duterte, and he says only positive stuff, right? The thing is, so I'm seeing here that parang miscommunications, and it's like they're blaming him for something he didn't say,
Right.
or they're blaming him for something that was taken out of context. The people who need to be blamed actually are GMA7. Because bakit nyo ginanyan yung kanyang quotation? Ba't nyo sinorten na nga nila, pinamukha nilang anti siya, di ba? Against Duterte. Parang pinamukha siyang anti-Duterte na hindi naman.
Hindi na dapat tayo magulat na mahilig mag-sensationalize yung ating mainstream media. No?
Yun ang problema. 'Di ba?
Pero yun nga, tama ka naman, Orion, dapat kasi alam mo, part of the problems that we encounter as a society is really, jumping the gun. Yung
Yes.
we tend to
Knee-jerk reaction.
we tend to believe something that we don't know anything, in its entirety. So pag kunyari may ganyang interview, it's easier for us to believe that this guy is really parang is being used by the opposition because he said something again, na if you look at it in context, kasi highly politicized na yung ating bansa ngayon, tapos maririnig mo yung kagaya ni ng isang sikat na vlogger na kagaya ni Nas Daily or Nas, sasabihin niyang kailangan mong magalit para magkaroon ng pagbabago. So ang kagad interpretation ng mga supporters ni presidente, nag-ano ba to?
Naghahasik ng himagsikan. Di ba?
Nag-instigate ba to? Or syempre yung yung opposition, gagamitin rin nila yan sa kanilang sariling naratibo. Yung sinabi ni Nas na tingnan mo yung banyaga na nagsasabi, kailangan yung magalit kasi kung galit kayo sa sistema ngayon, sa problema ngayon pertaining to the way things are run, then anything that will help their cause, syempre they will take advantage, and that's exactly what happened with Nas. And as innocent as his pronouncements were in that interview, it's totally taken out of context, and now it's snowballed into something even more troubling because now he's being accused of being a scam.
Right. Actually, unfair nga kasi if you think about it, when he said that Filipinos should be angry, ganyan, and maybe you'll be able to change things or do something about it, what he's saying is consistent with what we, Duterte supporters, did in 2016 and in 2019.
Yes. Right.
2019 also. Kasi 2016, galit na galit tayo sa kapalpakan ni Noynoy. Yung Noynoy administration, puro yung mga laglag bala, yung mga lahat sa 44, yung Haiyan, yung Typhoon Yolanda, di ba? Mm-hmm. Yung Luneta bus hostage crisis, yung pork barrel, kung ano pa yung kalokohan na nangyari. I mean, ang daming kapalpakan, nagalit ang mga Pilipino, pati ang maraming ibang taong sumuporta dati kay presidente. Hindi, I was never a Noynoy supporter.
But you were an LP supporter. You weren't an LP supporter?
No, never.
Never. Okay.
Never.
Okay.
I only happened to research about the LP before. But I was never. Because I voted for Dick Gordon during that time.
Okay,
and I campaigned against Noynoy. I campaigned against Noynoy.
All right.
And I campaigned against Noynoy, and I pointed out that Noynoy destroyed the Liberal Party's platform. Because the original platform of the Liberal Party was like this, like this, like this. Federalism, okay. Economic liberalization, okay. Parliamentary, okay. Biglang binura, binago. At ginawa nila na yung ang kanilang pag walang corrupt, walang mahirap. Binago nila yung kanilang plataforma.
Probably I've mistaken you for a professor that we know. Na he used to be associated with
okay. Yeah.
with that party, di ba?
No, yeah. So he wrote a book. He wrote a primer, a booklet about liberalism. Right? He wrote, but he said, I support the original aims of the Liberal Party.
Yun. Sabi
so
nga
the original Liberal Party, the pre-Noynoy Liberal Party, meaning to say, ano ba yung pinaglalaban ng Liberal Party dati? Diba? Which is kasama nga diyan ang tanggal 60-40, kasama diyan ang federalism, kasama diyan ang parliamentary. Tapos binago yung website ng Liberal Party nung time ni Noynoy. So, hindi ako 'yon. Actually, isa nating kaibigan na pro Duterte rin, si Edwin Hamora. He used to be pro Noynoy before. He used to be campaigning for Noynoy. But he got dismayado because of all the kapalpakan. So, ang dami sa atin nagalit dahil sa mga kapalpakan ni Noynoy. Bumoto tayo ng panibagong tao dito, which is Duterte. And so in 2019, we did the same. Na inidoro talaga yung 8 diretso.
Wala nang nakalusot.
Walang nakalusot.
Walang nakalusot na nila.
Dahil sa galit ng mga Pilipino sa kanila. Which is why I'm saying, tama naman yung sinabi ni Nas Kasi totoo naman tayo rin namang mga pro Duterte. We were angry at the Yellows Kaya tayo nagboto ng Duterte. Kaya tayo nagboto ng pro-Duterte na kaya nang daming nanalong mga kasama ni Duterte sa partido niya o sa kanyang alyansya. So, di ba? Yun yung sinasabi ko. So, parang bakit kayo nagagalit? Wala namang masamang sinabi si Nas. Binasa nyo lang yung poster na binago-bago yung pananalita niya, pero pag panunurin nyo yung video, buong yung makikita nyo, hindi naman yan yung sinabi niya. Di ba?
Kaya, so, yun I have to hand it to you, Orion, no? Kasi medyo you took a step back. And then tingnan mo muna kung ano yung konteksto ng mga sinasabi niya, at you didn't really, cast judgment upon anybody unless you found out more about the situation. Ang problema kasi ang dali natin talagang mag-react pag may narinig tayo ng salita. And I'm also wondering if that's the same thing happening with well, I'm not so sure if our politicians, because sometimes when they see things, you know where they're coming from, diba?
Yeah.
And I think may kinalaman din to, Orion, no? Kasi for a year or so already since the pandemic started, it's been heating up the political discussions and the arguments that have been happening on social media. Has gone up a notch yung intensity. At talagang lahat na lang medyo nagiging hindi naman paranoid, no, pero madali tayong mag-react, no, nagiging reactive tayo sa kung ano mang sabihin ng kabilang parlor regarding the administration. And it's been very obvious na talagang gusto nilang sirain yung imahe ng presidente dahil napaka-popular at iniisip na nila 2022. As you can see, pag pumunta tayo sa ating comment section, Orion, dumadami na rin yung mga trolls. At yung mga trolls are working overtime rin na para magkomento sa mga group blogs na kagaya sa atin na karamihan ay mga supporters ni presidente para lang manggulo. So, dyan pa lang malalaman natin na talaga yung funding na pumapasok ay lumalaki na rin at in preparation for 2022. And it's very understandable why people react to the way they have or towards Nas pronouncements or sa mga sinabi ni Nas. And na ito nga na naging itong walang patawad rin tong media, Orion Kasi nagsimula yan sa interview, tapos na wala yung konteksto ng kanyang sinabi about getting mad so that there'll be change. And now, siniscrutinize na nila yung kanyang ginagawa dito sa Pilipinas.
Yung Nas Academy niya, diba? So yung Nas Academy niya, he actually, so ito ang nakikita akong nangyari. Nagmamagandang loob itong si Nas na bigyan niya kasi alam niya na sikat si Juan Od. No? So, sikat si Juan Od sa Pilipinas. Ngayon, gusto niyang, parang gawa natin ng paraan para kumita si Juan Od at yung kanyang pamilya ng pera. Kasi nga, sikat sila, pero maganda naman sana kung kumita rin siya. So, he said, parang offer lang, just in case, baka naman gusto niyo, we have na most of the proceeds will go to you, tapos hosting, parang small fee lang, parang kumbaga, this is what you earn, you just give this small percentage to me for per person na sasali. So parang ganoon. So maliit lang yung cut nila, no? Now he had this contract done, 'di ba? So he had this contract, and then he had one of the closest grandniece of
grandniece pala.
Juan Od, grandniece. Oo. So grandniece ni Juan Od si Estelia ang pangalan niya. Sino ba to? Forgot. Estelia something. Wait, mali. Mali yung tinitingnan ko. She has a grandniece named Estelia, and then siya yung naging parang yun yung naging translator niya. Yun yung nagtingin sa kontrata, ganyan. Tapos kinuwento niya sa kanyang lola, ito, maganda yata to para sa pamilya natin. Kikita tayo, parang ganyan, di ba? So, at least maganda to para sa natin. Tapos, yun, so nag-thumbprint siya. So, ang lumabas, so this is pangalan niya? Estelia, meron dito
So, yung isang grand pamangkin rin na
hindi iba pang grand pamangkin
na nagkomento.
Si Estelia pa lang daw. So, Estelia pa lang daw is the closest one to Juan Od. And then there was, after the fact, there's another grandniece na hindi kasama dun sa usapan. So parang kumbaga parang part siguro ng family na hindi ganun kalapit na parang biglang narinig niya, oh may ganito pala, oh tapos hindi kayo humingi ng consent sa tribal elders natin at blah blah blah, may mga ganun nangyari. Tapos sinabi exploitation daw, even though there are good intentions. Actually she acknowledges na may good intentions naman pala, pero sinasabi niya exploitation daw. They are exploiting our culture, which I think honestly is a fucking very very woke thing to say. It's just way too woke, because para bang it's like, you know how the woke culture says na kung ikaw puti ka, bakit ka nagsusot ng barong? Parang hindi ka naman Pilipino, ha? Parang alala mo yung barkada dun sa States?
Yeah.
There was this bar na mga puti sila may-ari, and then they were coming up with the name.
May term na ginagamit dyan yung
cultural appropriation daw.
Cultural appropriation na they're accusing the owners of that bar of cultural appropriation.
Oh.
And I think the case here is I think the case with NAS is similar to what happened.
Similar. No? It's like para bang kasi ang dun sa case nung barkada, parang you're not allowed to use the word barkada because it's a Filipino word. Ganun. Parang, hey, barkada actually comes from Spanish, okay? It's like a boatload of people, parang people from within the same boat, right? People who are on the same boat, kasi barko, on the same barkada. It was originally spelled with a C, barkada. It's actually a Spanish word. Now, Filipinos now use it as our word. I don't see what's the problem with these guys honoring us and using that as the name of their bar. I mean, come on.
Sayang nga yung opportunity, Orion, kasi medyo ang ganda rin para ipang-promote ng ng ating kultura, yung ginamit yung barkada na pangalan.
So this is what happened
for that bar. But before you continue, bago mo explain, Orion, meron siguro ring gustong mapakinggan yung explanation mo na yan, kasi nasa ating green room ang nag-aantay si Dre Toledo.
Ayun, sige.
Yung in-invite mo dito sa Istoryang Futbolero.
Oh, yes.
Let's say hi to her, no?
Let's get her
Dre.
on. Okay. Hi, Dre.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, Orion. Hi, Ron.
Welcome to Istoryang Futbolero. It's nice to have you with us. You're all dressed up, but did you come from a party? Vista-vis ka,
no.
Dre.
Hapon pa lang kung nasaan ako.
Okay. That's good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Orion says he's been speaking a lot of good things about you, so it's nice to have you, and I'm sure you have something to say regarding this NAS situation. What's your first your initial take on it? Can you share with us?
Yes, from the standpoint of being an investigative journalist, I specialize in counterterrorism and countering violent extremism. So when this issue came out, actually, Ron, my friends from UP Diliman, were sending me private messages asking me, what's up? Like, why are they attacking NAS daily? A lot of confused people sending private messages. And to be honest, like, I was quiet for the last 3 days because, I didn't have any sufficient information at hand. And
right.
As a journalist, I make it a standard practice that I don't comment unless I'm the one covering the issue. Unless I have all the facts at hand. I have heard from both sides, at least 2 sides, to at least get some corroborating information, unless I have evidence to also support the claims of either or both parties concerned in the issue. So when this issue broke out, it started several weeks ago. It was when NAS came out with that interview with Jessica Soho. And so it was Orion who posted, that there was nothing foul about what Nasier said in the interview with Jessica Soho. And I actually, before I read the post of Orion, I was able to watch that video the day before when it came out. And I didn't see anything, like within, if you watch it completely within the context that it was said, there was nothing wrong when he said that Filipinos need to learn to be angry. Within the context that he said it, he wasn't inciting for revolt. He wasn't in any way supporting the Communist
Exactly.
Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, and the National Democratic Front. There was no such thing. And I just took it as, yeah, like, of course, as a journalist, I cover war, I cover all kinds of atrocities, and I myself, I'm a victim of terrorism, and it's not it's when you understand it and you come from Mindanao, when you see the complacency or apathy or indifference of people from Luzon, when it comes to understanding issues that concern Mindanaoans. um, I also feel that way, that Filipinos should learn to be angry more, and especially when it comes to issues of terrorism. So on that issue, like Orion and I saw eye to eye, but obviously that was the unpopular opinion at the time. And then usually Orion and I find ourselves in the not so popular side when it comes to controversial issues. But the thing there is because we share the same kind of mindset wherein we always wait for all the facts to be present before we come up with a position, before we formulate a stand. We both have that same um, basic principle towards investigation or
Scientific
independent
method,
investigation.
di ba?
Yes, I call it independent investigation of truth,
Yeah.
and yes, scientific method. But know with your own mind and see with your own eyes. Technically. So if you were not there, if you didn't, in the absence of being a personal witness, right? Then you need to have corroborating information, maybe a
Right.
video, maybe an audio recording, and that's standard practice. So now, the second issue that came out was the one with Wang Od. And so, when you were asking me, like, what was my initial reaction, it was the same thing. I was like, this seems to be a concerted effort. Like, it's too mainstream to see it as just a coincidence. What I'm saying here is that for me, my perspective is there's an agenda that's being pursued.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's clear because the mainstream media is involved. GMA, Philippine Daily Inquirer, they were taking snippets, of quotes that supposedly Nas said this, and they took it out of context. And you
Sure.
see the problem, Ron, about being a journalist, and if you're a journalist who comes from the Philippines, is that uh, there's just so many communist era sympathizers or communist termites, as I call them, within the mainstream media. And
Yeah.
so when an agenda like this comes out, obviously, because of the temperament of Filipinos, na ang Pilipino kasi, asar talo, pikon,
Mm-hmm.
um, mabilis maghusga kahit walang ebidensya. Basta
Tama.
viral, may opinion ka agad. Yan. Ganyan
Mm.
ang Pilipino. So, the communist terrorists, the CPP, NPA, NDF, whenever they have an agenda, they know, and this is the typical mindset of most Filipinos that communist terrorists exploit. So, when this issue broke out, I started looking at all the websites, all the news sources, even social media. I looked at Twitter, and I find zero statement coming from Wang Od herself,
Mm.
right? And there's no supporting evidence, just stories, basically, like on Facebook and Twitter, and nothing to support the claims. And it's like, even if I want to give the source the benefit of the doubt, the problem here is that it was supposed to be a social media, like content creation kind of um, endeavor, wherein um, the first one with Wang Od was the creation of the master class, right, with Nas supposedly.
Yes.
And then there was a second issue that snowballed. It came from Luis and
Mabulo, yeah.
Luis and Shai Lagarde. So I had my inbox was full of questions, all related to Nas Daily, and I was able to check that just like completely. I was able to check it today, about like 12 hours ago, and then maybe I read bits and pieces the last 2 days, but not really sufficient. Like I didn't allocate time in the last 2 days to look at, like, scour the news sites, social media sites for any other information. So basically, here, Ron, what you can observe is that there's this very clear agenda that they want to incite anger, right? Towards Nas, or Nas Daily, and to a certain extent, nadamay yung Project Nightfall, right? Na webpage. Nadamay siya because Project Nightfall, the guy involved in Project Nightfall, was the one filming the entire thing that never got published because what they found did not meet the expectations that they had, certainly, but it wasn't because they didn't want to, like, come out with a video like Project Nightfall and Nas Daily when they were working on it together. It was because they didn't find anything that corroborated the previous claims. So what happened was very clear. Supposedly, this Luis had some UN award for a social enterprise, and so they went there based on the good news that they saw. But then when they went to the province of this Luis, they saw that there was nothing to admire about how it was being run. So now you have to ask yourself, how did she was defending herself in her social media post. Her Luis's father also defended, obviously, the daughter, and they were attacking Nas and urging everybody to unfollow Nas because of the Wang Od issue, and then they're piggyback riding on it, and they're saying, yeah, and Nas did this thing to us as well. But the question here, Ron, is how come first it was a social media or content creation endeavor, but they don't have any video footage to prove, even an audio clip to prove that Nas or Project Nightfall said any of those things that they claimed Nas said, right?
Yeah, if I'll
Which is
interject, no, there was that part, di ba, na parang he's saying bad things about Filipinos. He's mocking or like mocking our accent, though. Parang things like that, di ba? If I do something about Filipinos, I'm immediately going to get a million views, something like that. So parang that's the claim that was made, but there's no proof to show na totoo yung sinasabi nila na sinabi talaga ni Nas yun. Eh baka nangyayari dito, baka revenge attack lang to dahil bakit mo hindi kami sinama dyan sa vlog mo? You didn't feature us, kaya kami galit sa'yo. Baka ganun eh. You'll never know, di ba? So, go ahead.
So the problem here is that maraming hindi nag-aakma doon sa claim. Kasi the Luis is claiming that she was a big fan of the Nas Daily, like her and her dad, before the supposed shoot in the province. And so obviously, if you're a big fan, then you would be taking videos and audio and photos with the person you claim to idolize, right? Like while you were doing this feature, and you, as a millennial, she would have like friends to at least do that for her or her dad or her family, and
So,
say,
Dre, just to be clear, Dre, that the person you're pertaining to here
this is
is
the Luis story that has been piggyback
Luis Mabulo.
riding Mabulo, Luis
Yeah.
Mabulo, who has been, and Shai Lagarde, and they've been piggyback riding on the Wang Od issue
right.
about
Yeah.
the master
Okay. So
class,
they've been
right?
spreading a
So
lot of disinformation. Is this what you're
yes,
saying
yes.
about
So
NAS?
if you,
Okay.
so what's happening is there's a steady release of information from mainstream media, and then further amplified in social media.
Mm.
And you have the mainstream media from print, like Philippine Daily Inquirer, and then GMA, and then ABS, and like all the news sources from the mainstream, um, misquoting NAS. And if you just take the time to go to the Jessica Soho interview, the original Jessica Soho interview, and you watch it from beginning to end, there's really nothing wrong with what he said. But if you base your opinion on the quote cards, or the quotable quotes that were
Like
featured in mainstream
the
media,
poster,
yeah,
yeah. That,
Actually,
yeah, with the face of Nas, and like just a snippet of what he said taken out of context, of course you're gonna get angry for the wrong reasons.
Dre, I actually spent some time watching the interview, or at least I caught like a few minutes of the interview, and it seemed very innocuous.
parang
Medyo ano
wala
lang.
lang, di ba? Very
Oh, parang
simple lang
nagkukwento
naman.
lang siya tapos tinatanong, and I thought the interview was really about yung kalakaran ni Nas, no, kung ano yung ginagawa niya sa Pilipinas and how he's helping the Filipinos. And at the same time promoting our culture. But and then I caught, and if you actually watch the entirety of that interview, going into what he said about getting angry so that there'll be change, there's no connection whatsoever, no? Parang ano lang, parang pahabol na lang yung sinabi niya na yun, tapos biglang yun ang naging main
Ginawang main
point
yun, oo. Ginawang
na
main
ng
yun.
conversation. So yes, I understand, Dre, no? Coming from somebody who
Yeah.
practices in
Journalism.
media, yeah, in journalism. By the way, if you're not as familiar with Dre, you write for the Manila Times, Dre, no? Tama ba?
Yes, I've
Okay.
released my investigative reports on ISIS, on the Marawi siege, some reports on the CPP, NPA, NDF under the Manila Times. That's
Yun.
correct.
Yun,
So
yun.
it's really great that you're here explaining to us, no, kasi the much of our conversation here, Dre, sa Istoryang Futbolero with Orion, in our what we call Constipation Friday, kasi meron kami mga issues about
Kasi we're talking about the Constitution, the
the
1987
Constitution.
Constitution.
and the faults of our yung systemic problems that we are encountering right now that surfaces from time to time in simple things like this, no, like the issue with Nas, people jumping the gun, judging him for something that he didn't really mean or say, and you have the mainstream media like taking advantage of that. Obviously, everybody knows already. Even a large chunk of the supporters of the president, the administration, know already that that most, or half of our mainstream media, they like fight, getting people to fight with each other. Eh. That's the way.
Sinasabong ang mga tao.
Divide and
wanted-
conquer.
Yeah,
Divide and
sabong,
conquer
di ba?
yan. Sabong.
Exactly.
I'd like to mention, no, like I really recall that the same thing that's happening to Nas, where he's being misrepresented, tapos people are just jumping the bandwagon, parang kumbaga jumping the gun and just attacking him without really knowing all the facts. Tapos they dig their heels once the facts are there. Tapos dapat pala, ay hindi naman, wala palang masamang ginawa
And then
si
they don't apologize.
Hindi naman sila
No.
nag-apologize.
Wala man,
Napapahiya.
wala
Nahiya
man
na
lang
sila eh.
iratom, di ba, Dre? Hindi
Walang
mo lang.
iratom. Oo. Hindi nila aaminin na
Walang
nagkamali
iratom.
sila.
Exactly.
Oo. Hindi
Parang
nila
ano lang.
inaamin.
Kasi ganito po yan mga kaibigan, yung mga viewers natin, no? Sa media kasi very importante to know that there is such a thing as a news cycle. And they're playing with that cycle, no, as they try to stretch as much as possible that what you call this weakness of mainstream media, where people's attention span is very short. So after a week, people will forget about it. So even if they said something wrong, they know people will just forget about this news item,
Oh.
and they won't be held liable
Accountable.
accountable
Bad
for
trip lang
this.
talaga. Kasi what's happening to Nas, talagang yun nga, nag-jump the bandwagon ng maraming tao. Tapos later on, I'm pretty sure that the facts will become very clear. Tapos hindi na sila mag-aamin na mali sila kasi nakakahiya na. But that's the same thing that happened back in the 1990s when during the Ramos administration, unang pinag-uusapan yung baguhin natin ang 1987 Constitution. Kasi during that time, pinag-uusapan na may mga mali sa loob ng Constitution. And then when they said that we need to have a parliamentary system, etc., biglang sinabi ng mass media, term extensions daw. Paulit-ulit nila sinasabing term extensions. Tapos ito namang mga uto-utong mga Pilipino, naniwala. So, pag sinabing, cha-cha na naman ang pinag-uusapan, nagagalit ang mga Pilipino, cha-cha, masama yan. And all the way,
Ang word na cha-cha nga, naging masama
parang
yung
negative.
branding, naging negative.
Diba?
Diba yung cha-cha na
Oo.
term. Dre, you've been doing this for a long time. Do you see, we can probably use this in our conversation here, that the issue that happened, or the big takeaway we can get from the NAS issue or situation is that this is a long-standing problem between, how people take the news and how the people behind the news use it for an agenda. What's your take on this, Ray?
There's a national security angle that a lot of people overlook. Clearly, Project Nightfall and NAS Daily are both anti-communists.
Oh, okay.
There is motive. If you're gonna ask for motive, there is motive for the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, National Democratic Front, or the CPP, NPA, NDF as a communist terrorist group to concertedly attack both NAS Daily and Project Nightfall. Why? Because there's a forthcoming 2022 elections, national elections, and by urging emotional Filipinos, including the supporters of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, I don't get offended when people call me BDS,
Who does?
I don't get offended at all. But
Okay.
but one thing that I do constantly remind people, at least who follow my work, is that wag tayong emotional. Hintayin natin yung set of
Yun nga.
facts na
Facts.
hawak na natin, 'di ba? Saka tayo mag come up with a conclusion, and then saka tayo magkaroon ng side on the issues that we are commenting on. Kung hindi mo maintindihan, you can ask questions, 'di ba? There's nothing wrong about asking questions. Pero iba yung pag-ask ng questions dun sa pag-hurl ng accusations na
Right.
puro based
Tama.
on assumptions, no? So, ang problema dito, Ron, is meron kasing, alam naman natin na 53 years na ang CPP, MPA, NDF sa Pilipinas, and sila rin yung pinakamalakas humarang sa efforts ng Correct the Constitution, yung efforts ng campaign natin sa Open FDI. Yan din, malakas yan hinaharang, diba, ng mga CPP,
CPP,
NPA,
NPA talaga yung main kalaban natin eh. Sila yung ayaw ng mga reforma.
Ayaw nila ng reform. So, now when you ask yourself kasi, si Project Nightfall and yung NAS Daily na Facebook pages, sila kasi yung nag-take ng videos. Meron silang evidence na hindi sinabi at all ni Nasier
Ni Mabulo.
yung mga kiniklaim doon sa mga post ni Luis, no? At saka ni Shai Lagarde. So then you ask yourself, how much of yung mga statements coming from the relative of Wang-od is completely true? Kasi yung 'di ba medyo na kasi 20 minutes after nag-start kayo saka lang ako nakapasok, no? So hindi ko alam kung na-cover no before the discussion on yung na-mention ni Orion na cultural appropriation. Hindi ko alam kung na-mention na dati, bago sumikat si Wang Od, di ba, ang More Fun in the Philippines campaign was urging local tourists as well as foreigners to come to, the Cordilleras and see the wonders, di ba, na it's more fun in the Philippines, and then you try to go see Wang Od and then have your tattoo done. It was never, there was no such thing in the entire More Fun in the Philippines campaign that at even one point sinabi nila na may cultural appropriation issues doon. And nung sumisikat na yung style of tattoo ng tribe ni Wang Od, umokay naman yung nag-charge na ng dati walang charge, free lang. Tapos naging parang 700 pesos, 750 pesos, tapos naging 5,000 pesos. Palaki na palaki. As more people got involved, para siyang, kumaga, di ba, sa marketing, pag dumadami na yung mga tao sa kumpanya, palaki yung cost nung actual na service or product. Pero kung si Wang Od lang, ang sa kanya, what she wanted to spread. Kasi dying practice na nga yung tattoo art niya di ba? Yun yung problema. At the time that it began, ang concern was it was a dying cultural na practice. Kasi ayaw na ng mga kabataan matuto paano gawin yun kasi masakit. Kasi may iba na silang mga modern na preoccupation.
Techniques.
So, dito ka, no? So, kung magta-tattoo artist ka ngayon, mas gusto mo yung modern na tattoo na mas safe na mga equipment, di ba? So,
electric needle, baka ganun, di ba?
Actually, nag-formal lang ako na damit kasi baka makita lahat ng tattoo ko.
Marami ka.
May tattoo ka pala.
Yung pala yun, Dre. Maku-curious na yung ating mga viewers niya na kayo yung mga tattoo. Pero, bordado ka din pala, Dre.
Pero,
kaya,
malapit sa puso ko yung issue ng tattoo.
Kaya pala.
The reality is, nakatulong yung, 'di ba, yung campaign ng Department of Tourism. Nakatulong talaga 'yon sa pagbuhay ng economy, yung local economy ng tribe nila doon sa Cordillera. Tapos ang question is, all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, ngayon sa gitna ng pandemya, alam natin from the perspective of counterterrorism, there's been a big gap and like big difficulty in terms of yung dating kinasanayan na terrorism financing ng CPP, NPA, NDF, because since the COVID-19 pandemic.
Uy, nawala si Dre. Na yata yung kanyang connection, baka naubusan ng baterya.
Yeah, well, nandiyan na siya yata. Wait.
Nandiyan na ba siya? Nakapasok ko siya?
He's attempting to
come
join
back.
us, to come back.
Sige.
Let's see.
So, actually, I was gonna comment, just to catch up on that. Parang feeling ko nga sayang kasi this is a way for her tribe to be able to earn more money. Particularly her family, kasi siya naman yung sikat. And I see that in the case of Nas, he was trying to do a good deed by helping her out. Na parang obviously ngayon, people can't really travel because of COVID. So, with the NAS Academy being online, it's possible for people to be able to watch her parang show how it's done, and then she can earn money from it, di ba? So, ngayon, may lumalabas ngayon yung may isang kamag-anak, itong isang grandniece na itong si pangalan na ito, yung grandniece na yon, si Gracia. Si Gracia yung hindi naman kasi siya nakasama dun sa initial na usapan. Kasi yung initial na usapan was Estelia. So, Estelia pa lang daw. Estelia pa lang daw is the close grandniece of Wang Od. And she was the one who was kind of helping out, no? So, she was, I think, also coordinating with Nas. And she felt siguro, maganda to para kay Lola. So, Lola, anong tingin nyo? Maganda yata ito. She explained it to her. Ayan, thumbprint. After the fact, itong isang kamag-anak na hindi kasama sa initial na usapan, parang
Tumausaw.
Siguro galit. Bakit hindi ako kasama? Ito si Gracia.
Mm.
Ito yung nagsasabi ngayon na, ano yan? Mali yan. Kasi dapat bukukunin muna yung consent ng ng tribal elders namin. At meron pa yung rule na hindi pwedeng ituro yung mga secrets ng aming tribo sa labas. So, ngayon, lumalabas na parang there's that cultural appropriation thing na hindi dapat, outsiders should not have access to this because this is ours and ours alone. You know, if it's karate, karate should only be for Okinawans. Judo should only be for the Japanese. Kung Fu should only be for the Chinese. Kung hindi ka French, hindi ka pwede mag-fencing. Mga parang ganun, 'di ba? Parang yun yung nangyayari.
It's so convenient for people to say that, no? And whoever that is who said that there should be an exclusivity sa art form na to, ay namimiss yung point kung bakit pinatry i-promote. Kaya nga dying na nga yung
Oo nga yun nga
diba? Kaya kailangan malaman ng mga tao kung ano yung ginagawa doon at para Yes,
bakit
go ahead,
ngayon
Ray.
lang? Bakit ngayon lang?
Oo.
You have to ask about yung kaninang point, no? May timing yan. Alam natin naghihingalo ang CPP, NPA, NDF ng mga command units. Yung mga, especially dahil na-crackdown na ng National Task Force to End the Local Communist Armed Conflict, yung terrorism financing na napupunta sa mga CPP, NPA, NDF camps na tumututok sa mga IPs, sa mga indigenous peoples, diba? So naghihingalo na sila. And recently, the Philippine government, had finally, the National Democratic Front, also as a terrorist organization. So, syempre, pwede nang i-freeze ng Philippine government yung mga bank assets nila, di ba? Yung financial asset ng NDF.
Yes.
So, itong reality na to, they have to become, ang mga terrorist organizations kasi, may kanya-kanya yan silang cell. So, yung terrorist cell, they're each responsible to do fundraising, whether it's through revolutionary taxes, yung extortion, di ba? Yung mag-commit sila ng arson until ng lahat ng properties mo, lahat ng tractors mo, lahat ng truck mo, susunugin nila, papatayin nila yung mga employees mo until magbayad ka ng revolutionary tax. Unfortunately, that kind of long-term nila na communist terrorist extortion, that's hard to pull off in the middle of the pandemic. Because people also don't have, a lot of Filipinos have lost their traditional jobs because they cannot anymore go to work, they cannot commute, they cannot, unless you have an option to work from home in the Philippines, then kawawa ka, di ba? So all the more for the farmers, all the more for the mining companies and all these other industries near yung mga far-flung areas kung saan namumugad ang Communist Party, yung mga New People's Army na namumundok. So, ang sa akin was, you were asking me how, as a researcher, as a counterterrorism analyst, like what was my initial reaction? First off, I always look at patterns. In the absence of complete data, in the absence of complete sets of information or facts na hindi ko kaagad makuha, what I look at would be initially patterns, di ba? So that you know where to look at for information. So, ang patterns doon, first, sinabi ko na parehong anti-communist. Ang Project Nightfall na page at saka ang NAS Daily. They're both very anti-communist and populated ang pages nila ng anti-communist content. Now, if you want to destroy the effectivity of these two content creators na marami sila, 20 million plus followers, di ba, each. So, worldwide yon. So, every time they talk about communism in different parts of the world, that also helps Filipinos form proper opinions, proper knowledge ng na hindi naman nag-exist sa bubble. Kasi may tendency mga Pilipino na akala nila ang Pilipinas, especially yung EDSA 1, akala nila nasa nasa bubble lang ang Pilipinas na nag-i-exist siya sa sarili niyang universe, 'di ba? As if Ron, as if walang Cold War era nung panahon ni President Marcos. It's like when we talk about the martial law years under President Marcos, it's as if there was no freaking Cold War that was ravaging like the entire world, 'di ba? Philippines included. So, alam mo, ganun kagrabe mag-control ng information ang CPP and PNP because we know that in the Philippines, because they have been around for 53 years, the National Task Force to End the Local Communist Armed Conflict has been around for only almost 3 years. So, diba, kung i-compare mo, medyo 50 years ahead sila sa pag-set up ng infrastructure sa
yung
when it
networks
comes
nila.
to, the networks, mainstream media, universities, academies, di ba? Yung sa
itong kayang
nila ng government.
Ito kayang si Gracia Palicas, Dre, tingin mo ba baka naman CPP and
Nadikitan.
PA related yan?
Oo, or nagkitan.
Kasi she's the one out of the blue. She just came out with this very woke statement. Oh, that's cultural approach. Yung parang hindi pwedeng blah blah blah.
Ang dating sa akin, to be honest, nung una ko siyang nakita na issue, yung Wangod pa wala pa yung kay Luis na issue, yung kay Wangod pa lang. Kasi dahil hindi si Wangod yung nagsasalita, it's just a relative. And because I am from Mindanao and I know the mindset. By the way, Ron, Manobo kasi ang mother ko. So, I'm half Manobo. So, alam ko yung practice kasi sa mga tribes, ang problema, kaya nga dangerous yung mag-jump to conclusion. Kasi, pag yung problema kasi sa tribes, yung inggitan, like for example, may tinulungan ka na isang member, no? Tapos halimbawa, kung gawin mo yan sa Tiboli tribe, Manobo tribe, ganun din. Pag pumili ka ng isang tao lang, tapos siya yung sisikat, naiinggit yung ibang tribes. Diba? Kasi yung tribe can have, for example, for example sa Tiboli, yung tribe na nandun sa Lamdalag, hindi sila nasasama kasi nasa gitna sila ng jungle, nasa gitna sila ng forest. Hindi sila nasama doon sa mga Tiboli na creatives na, di ba yung sumikat yung Tinalak dahil kay Margie Moran. Pero pinili lang ni Margie Moran na kumuha, mag-tap ng isang tribe. It was not all the tribes of Tiboli that were involved. It was just one particular tribe. Now, when other tribes were trying to, get into the livelihood, di ba, of sharing profit, ayaw nila, nagagalit yung kabilang tribo. So, merong mga, may mga sariling inggitan na hindi naman kasama ang CPP, NPA, NDF. Alam mo yon, hindi naman sila involved sa inggitan. It's really yung may nasa personal level na inggitan. So, yun yung first level. Pero kita mo, yung kay Margie Moran, hindi yan umabot sa mainstream media. Hindi siya kino-cover ng mainstream media. Bakit? Kasi wala siya sa agenda ng communists. Pero pag nasa agenda na siya ng communists, like itong nangyari ngayon dito, na wala namang statement from Wangod. Hindi mo naman, nakakita ka ba ng video na siya mismo nagsabi na, niloko ako.
Pero, Jay,
wala.
Alam mo yung mga sinasabi mo, may implications yan matagal naman nating alam at parating namang sinasabi ng iba nating mga kakilala na matagal na sa gobyerno na and you mentioned earlier that the communist movement have infiltrated different segments of society, including our media. And if you're saying that this is government institutions, I've heard this as a matter of fact, one of these speakers, a former rebel official, actually mataas yung rango niya sa CPP-NPA. What's her name? Medyo skinhead pa nga siya Tapos nagsalita siya in one of the talks of the DILG. Ang unang sinabi niya, Orion, natawa ko Sabi niya, yung mga yung mga NYC dyan, yung NYC daw, yung National Youth Commission, alam ko, yung mga ibang miyembro ninyo, kasapi ng CPP-NPA. Kaya wag kayong
My aunt Jojo,
Uh,
she was the one who infiltrated the NYC. So
mm,
ano pa yan, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. After the torture, nung marami siyang pinatay, yung si Ka Jojo, who's my mom's elder sister, and commander din siya ng NPA. Isa siya sa mga naging lovers ni Saturo Campo. So, may pinsan ako kay Saturo Campo. Itong reality na grabe mag-distort ng information ang mga communists. Kasi, for example, yan, pinasok ni Ka Jojo yung NYC. Pinasok niya kasi doon sila, government funding ang ginagamit nila para sirain din ang gobyerno. Yun ang
Grabe.
classic
Shit
infiltration.
talaga.
yeah. Just to put things in perspective, Dre, no, kasi ang pinaka-obvious thing na talagang dapat makita ng mga tao. And one thing that we've been pushing here ni Orion dito sa Istoryang Futbolero, lalong-lalo na pag pinapag-usapan namin ng reforma, that people should have the right mindset when it comes to reforms. One thing that we should avoid is jumping the gun and casting judgment on
Yes.
something that we don't understand, because that's how people manipulate us. Yung mga kagaya nito, kasi alam nyo, hindi lang sinasabi natin election 2022 ang pinapag-usapan natin, and political reforms and everything. Gaya ng sabi ni Ma'am Dre, ay talagang ayaw ng CPP-NPA na magkaroon ng pagbabago. Kasi pag naayos natin itong mga systemic problems ng ating bansa na hinaharap natin for the last few decades since after President Marcos, ano pa ang magiging relevance ng CPP-NPA? Wala na silang ipapaglaban kasi nabago na yung sistema yun ang parating lang inuudyok, 'di ba? Yun ang kanilang ang kanilang battle cry, and they're asking you to join them is because there are problems that we need to overcome, and gusto nilang gibain yung institutions na nagpo-propagate nagpapalaganap ng itong mga katiwalian na nangyayari sa gobyerno. Paano kung nabago natin yan? Hindi sila mabibigyan ng credit. And yung kanilang
Irrelevant na sila.
irrelevant na sila. So as much as possible, and you can see sometimes for coming from the comments from the comment section, they are like working overtime talaga to talagang to confuse people. That's their their modus.
Modus operandi. Modus
No,
operandi.
to really confuse people about what's the truth, 'di ba? Pag the more you're confused, the more you become apathetic and indifferent of what matters. 'Di ba, Dre? Yan yung diyan ang ginagawa nila.
It's the same thing that if you notice yung first ever na pro-government rally ng pro Duterte na support sa Luneta, millions yon.
Yeah, dami.
Diba? News blackout yon. And pero because of social media and because of drones, talagang na-capture yung truth, di ba? Na napakita natin na
Yes,
ito
yes.
talaga yung nangyari sa Luneta. But like what you were saying, nagkakaroon ng fatigue. Pag paulit-ulit kang nag-aas na mag-rally ang mga tao, nagkikreate siya ng certain level of rally fatigue, di ba?
Yes.
So, it's the same thing as you were saying, na pag masyadong maraming hinihingi na magalit ka dito, nakakapagod kaya yung parati kang
Oo
galit.
naman. It's
Yeah.
it's very natural for people to stay away from negative people. 'Di ba?
Yes,
in,
yes.
in simple conversations with friends, 'di ba? You have this one friend who keeps on complaining. 'Di ba, most of the time you try to avoid having conversations with that person.
Indeed, indeed.
It's no different from this.
It's toxic. It becomes so toxic.
Exactly.
You don't see any solution, di ba? Like ikaw, for example, Ron and Orion, I'm sure naging close din kayo kasi pareho kayong data-driven, pareho kayong purpose-driven, di ba? And in the same manner, na bakit ako naging close kay Orion? It's also because I'm data-driven, I'm purpose-driven. So, yung may commonality in terms of how we approach data, how we approach problems. Na if there's a problem, it means that there's a solution. If there's no solution, it means it's not a problem. You're just a drama queen. Diba? Kasi, yun. um, kailangan, kung you consider something to be a problem, kailangan merong solution. So, in this particular NAS daily na drama on social media, unfortunately, I saw a lot of people making hasty judgments and criticism of NAS Daily and also the Project Nightfall na Facebook page. And I just felt bad kasi parang nagkaroon ng selective amnesia yung mga Filipinos kasi lahat ng mga DDS, yung mga diehard Duterte supporters na nagagalit sila. Bakit? Including myself, nagagalit ako sa yung pag merong mga sinasabi ang mainstream media against President Duterte which is taken out of context. So, lahat yan nagkakasundo tayo na oo, bastos ang mainstream media, gago ang mainstream media, talagang mga salot-salipunan ng mainstream media dahil kung ano-anong mga katarantaduhan, hashtag fake news ang pinagsasabi ng mainstream media. Ganyan, di ba? Yan ang lahat na parate. Especially war on drugs, especially on how the COVID-19 pandemic is being handled. So, panaming mga ganyan na reactions tayo. But then all of a sudden, when it came to this NAS Daily and Project Nightfall na fiasco, parang all of a sudden nagka-selective amnesia sila na ang basis ng arguments nila is also the mainstream media that they despise. Kasi
Kaya
yung
nga
mainstream media na nagtitake out of context ng lahat ng sinasabi ni President Duterte. So parang why won't di ba? Yun lang ang request ko sa mga kapwa DDS ko natin na wag tayong magpamanipula, wag tayong magpa-control kasi magaling ang CPP, NPA, NDF sa brainwashing, mind conditioning.
At saka part
Forte
ng
nila
kanilang
yan.
At saka Dre, part ng kanilang arsenal is to mamikon. Gagalitin ka, iinsultuhin ka para mag-react ka, tapos in the hopes na pag medyo ka na, you're affected by your anger, na you won't be able to rebut.
You'll make a wrong move. Yeah, and you'll make a wrong move. Yeah.
And you say the wrong things. And that's exactly what you want to do.
Actually, this is where what I've been basically trying to promote basically when I started commenting about this issue, I was really promoting a particular process. And that process is basically you take a step back, parang magagalit ka dahil there's something that seems to be an issue na nakakainis. Pero you take a step back, so number one is take a step back. Number two, gather all the relevant facts and evidence that you can gather. Number three, do analysis of those facts, logically, of course. And then number four, you will then you make your assessment. You take your stand based on that analysis. And then number five, if there's new evidence that points in a different direction, you have to change your direction. You have to change your assessment.
Yeah.
Which is
may tinatawag kasi na point of no return for people who are involved in politics, in the political discourse of our country. And I can tell, kahit na sa our own circles, Dre, I have friends who are also very die-hard supporters. DDS rin sila, dilawan die-hard supporters. na kahit na anong magandang ginawa ni Presidente, hindi nila papakinggan yun. Kasi mas naniniwala sila doon sa mga negatibong naririnig nila. And it has something to do with their pride as well. They can't seem to accept that the government has done so much in the last 5 years. So I think we also should learn a thing or two from there kasi tandaan natin ng mga DDS na tinatawag nating DDS ay sobrang dami. Marami talagang supporters sa Presidente. As a matter of fact, it's going to affect the 2022 elections. That's why it's getting noisier and noisier on social media.
That's why they need to do the divide and conquer now.
Yes.
A year before the election.
Yeah.
A year before the elections.
A year before the election. Because I just feel that as a Filipino, I just want to encourage our fellow Filipinos na, to be fair to Nasir, to be fair to Project Nightfall, kasi alam naman natin na they're already on the defensive. Kasi yung unang
Mm.
nag-attack is coming from the mainstream media na further amplified by the social media of, these many different issues na nag-snowball right after the Jessica Soho interview, which seems so mundane and very harmless na interview. So, dapat magtanong ang mga tao na, okay, kapag mabilis nag-snowball ang isang issue, ano yung agenda? You always have to ask, ano yung agenda? So, kung yung agenda is going to help the country, great. Pero kasi dito, ang ano bang sinasabi nila na dahil daw sa rights ng indigenous peoples. Now, ako, IP ang mother ko, so if merong dapat emotional or dapat mabilis magalit regarding the exploitation of IPs, that should be, me, because my mother, her sisters were exploited. Kinuha sila ng Communist Party, kinuha sila ng New People's Army at 12 years old. May choice ba sila? Syempre wala, di ba? Vitiated yung consent nila nung naging child soldiers sila ng CPP, NPA, NDF. That's how they rose to the high rank of being CPP, NPA, NDF na high-ranking leaders. But the reality is, yun ang tamang context of state exploitation. Di ba? Pero yung gamitin mo, i-twist mo yung concept of exploitation, tapos lilituhin mo yung Filipino na audience na nakikinig sa mainstream media, sa social media, nalilituhin mo sila kung ano ibig sabihin ng exploitation ng IPs. They're taking the discussion away from what is important, which is the CPP and PANDF making use of the children of IP in different indigenous peoples na mga IP tribes na all over the country, hindi lang sa aming mga Manobo. Marami lang sa aming Manobo ang kinukuha kasi warrior class nga kami. Diba? So, kumbaga, kung tribo lang na magaling pumatay, yun yung tribe namin. Diba? So, kaya maraming kinukuha yung NPA. But, yan ang exploitation. Pero yung gagamitin mo yung exploitation dahil sa tattoo, na dying art form siya dahil sa sobrang secret pa niya, kaya siya naging dying art form. No! Kaya siya naging dying art form kasi wala na silang pakialam for such a long time that it took the interest of outsiders. It took the interest of not just the NAS or Project Nightfall, but it took the interest of Filipinos na galing sa Luzon, galing sa probably Ateneo de Manila, UP, yung mga mahilig magpa-bundok-bundok, tas maghahanap ng something parang novelty na experience. Tapos, they start raving about it, and then they talk to their foreign friends na, oy, more fun in the Philippines, come to Philippines, and then punta tayo ng Cordillera, magpatattoo tayo kay Wangod. And that kind of, yung very hashtag na millennial, hashtag woke, na positive side of being woke. Yung magaling yung lahat na lang ng ginagawa mo, pinopost mo sa social media, tapos pinopromote mo sa friends mo, di ba? So, yung culture na yan ang nagbuhay balik sa kultura ng pagtatattoo ni Wangod, di ba? If it weren't for the outside intervention, it was already a dying practice. That's why in the beginning, kahit gusto magturo ni Wangod sa mga mas bata, ayaw nilang matuto because there was no commercial interest. They didn't see any potential for livelihood if they did that traditional tattooing. But when there was a demand for it, di ba? Yun ang doon nabuhay. So ngayon, bakit sila galit sa mga nagpo-promote, di ba? Kasi kami pumupuntang foreigners sa Philippines just to go to Cordilleras, just to meet Wangod. And then they pay like whatever amount. Dati, yung 700 nga, sabi ko sa'yo, naging 2,000, naging 5,000. There are people who would pay as much as 10,000 just to wait to get their tattoo na sobrang sakit. Di ba?
Walang anesthesia.
At palaki ng palaki, tapos pagka nagka-infection, hayaan mo lang, part ng process yun. Diba?
Aray ko.
walang DOH na nai-involve dito. So, si Duque is not even involved pag may infection, di ba? So, it's like, completely like hardcore. Para siyang, alam mo yon, Spartan level of tattooing. Ganun siya kasakit. That's why it became a dying tradition. Kasi masakit siya. Na meron namang anesthetic or meron namang mga modern guns for tattooing. Pero, it came the novelty of how it was done, 'di ba? The yung so-called secret of how it is done. So, with the help of social media, 'di ba? With the interest of very big influencers like Nas Daily, nakatulong 'yon sa pagbigay ng international appreciation, further international appreciation. Na now more than ever during the time of COVID, syempre kailangan ng mga taga Cordillera yung ganong kind of interest. Kapag wala na ang COVID in maybe 2 years, in 2023, at least nasa bucket list ng mga foreigners or mga OFWs babalik ng Philippines, nasa bucket list nila na pumunta sa Cordilleras because of the tattoos, di ba? That were made famous by Wang Od. So, yun yung point ko na kung logical tayo about it, dapat tanungin natin how is it na all of a sudden naging villain si Nas.
Oo nga eh.
Kung totoo.
Tumutulong na nga siya eh. Tapos.
Oo. And if it's a real issue, if it was a real like legal issue, how come it happened 2 years later in the middle of the pandemic wherein a lot of CPP, NPA, and the organizations and terrorist cells are really having great difficulty raising funds because they cannot anymore raise extortion money. Hindi na sila makapag-rev tax. Diba? So, bakit siya na-timing na wala na silang tax, na-timing pa na finreeze yung accounts ng National Democratic Front? I mean, talagang iniipit na sila as a communist terrorist org. They are looking for different ways from ang laki nung na crowdfunding na na-raise through the yung community pantry, which is actually a communist pantry, di ba? Actually, nauto. Gano'ng kagaling ang CPP, NPA, NDF mangloko? Nauto ng CPP, NPA, NDF si Project Nightfall, who is anti-communist, to make a video about the community/communist pantry of Ana Patricia noon. And it was so funny. I distinctly remember when I saw it, I was so fucking horrified. I'm sorry, pwede ba magmura dito?
Okay lang yan.
Okay lang ako. Nagbubura ako dito.
Okay.
Si Orion, numero 1.
I was so horrified when I saw the Project Nightfall feature on the community pantry, which I call communist pantry. And hindi man lang niya alam na komunista si Ana Patricia noon. At saka, bakit niya maintindihan, tinagalog nila yung mga quotes ni Karl Marx.
Yung mga slogan.
yung mga Marxist slogans.
To each according to, ganyan, di ba? To each according to ability, to each according to need, from each according to ability. Ginawang Tagalog, kaya hindi niya alam.
Ginawang Tagalog. So, ito
Sabi
naman
nila,
si Project Nightfall hindi niya naintindihan. So, gumawa pa siya ng feature na akala niya hero tong si Ana Patricia noon. And look at the typical CPP, NPA, NDF na tactic, di ba? They did it for what? 6 weeks? Maximum? Tapos, nag-reap na siya ng awards left and right. Tapos, tinigil na niya. Nag-fundraising siya sa online. Tapos, tumulong na yung maraming ng taong gumawa ng sarili nilang community pantry, na sincere naman na community pantry. Pero, kumbaga, after she took all the credit for it, tapos binusa na yung lahat ng crowdfunding. Ganyan mag-fundraising ang communist pantry. Diba? So, naloko nila. Ganito kagaling ang mga gago na yan. Naloko nila si Project Nightfall na gawa ng feature. So, sabi ko kay Project Nightfall, Dear Project Nightfall, actually, hindi naman ako fan or follower, pero like dumaan siya sa somebody shared it. So, doon ko first na-discover si Project Nightfall. Tapos sabi ko, parang narinig ko sa iba kong friends natin na anti-communist siya. Bakit ngayon pinopromote niya si Ana Patricia non? So,
Galing,
yun pala, kasi hindi niya, kasi
Hindi
hindi
niya alam.
niya na-get. Hindi niya alam, kasi Tagalog eh. Diba? Tagalog yung tapos yung mga researchers naman ni Project Nightfall na Filipino, tanga rin. Kung hindi sila CPP and PNPF, tanga rin sila. Like, hindi nila naisip, nasama sila sa, alam mo yung emotional na parang, oh my God, may community pantry. Oh my God, ito nakakatouch sa bayanihan. Parang, hello, may Bayanihan Act nga eh. Bayanihan Act 1 and 2. O ilang, pag hospital ka, bakit babayaran ba ng komunista ng 1 million hospital mo for COVID? Hindi naman. Bumili ba sila ng vaccine? Hindi naman.
Alam mo, Dre,
And then all of a sudden, they became heroes.
May tanong ako, no? Go ahead, Ron, ikaw muna.
I was gonna say, kasi syempre it's already, we are on our 1 hour and 20 minutes yung ating conversation sa Istoryang Futbolero. So I was thinking at this point, yung big takeaway natin sa ating conversation. Kasi usually, Dre, pag Istoryang Futbolero, sa huli ng aming conversation, ay inano namin talagang sinisynthesize namin yung aming pinag-usapan ni Orion. At from there, we're hoping that our viewers were able to pick up something from the conversation. And I think that's the bottom line when you have conversations with people, diba? You want to get something of value from that conversation. And one thing that we realized from what you've given us, the information that you've given us about what's been going on, one thing's for sure na pwede nating sabihin, yung mga tao dyan sa CPP-NPA, hindi mga bobo yung mga yan. Alam nila yung mga ginagawa nila.
Nanloloko talaga.
Nilalaro nila yung human emotions ng ating ng mga kalaban nila. First and foremost, formidable naman talaga ang DDS na tinatawag, yung supporters, yung support base ni Presidente, napakalaki talaga. At
dami talaga tao.
Dami talaga na sumusuporta kay Presidente. Dahil nga,
stay united.
We need to stay united. Ang ating weakness lang, inherent weakness talaga, Dre, ng mga DDS is madaling mag-react. At masyadong emotional. Kasi lahat naman yung ating support kasi sa kay Presidente ay emotionally driven, kumbaga, di ba? Noong 2016, even noong 2019, and even kahit anong dakdak ng kabila ng oposisyon at kung anong mga kasinungalingan pinapalabas nila dahil sa, which can be also a negative thing, no? Pag pinapairal mo yung emosyon mo, ay first and foremost nagiging talaga dig your heels. You don't believe what people say against the president. But number two, also, they can say the most devious thing to make you react, and you react naman. Yun lang ang nagiging problema. Kaya mapapansin mo rin, Dre, even within the DDS, nagkakaroon din ng mga alitan. Kasi very emotional yung mga involved eh. At sila mismo paminsan nag-aaway-aaway rin. So, ang big takeaway ko for me, at i-connect ko na rin sa aming Constipation Friday ni Orion, na a very important aspect of reforms, and for people who are pushing for reforms and who want to have profound changes here in our country, we need to be like Dre. As much as we can, dapat matuto tayong
dapat
maging
maganda
more...
ka.
Exactly. Yun din sasabihin ko din, naunahan mo lang ako, dapat dapat pinapangalagaan mo yung sarili mo, dapat ka nagpapaganda, at second ay dapat pinapakinggan mo eyelashes, at dapat medyo even keel ka. Ibig sabihin, pinapag-aralan mo lahat ng sides ng kwento, hindi ka basta-basta magja-judge or magre-react sa isang bagay. Tatanungin mo kaagad pag lumalabas galing sa mainstream media, ano ba ang reaction na gustong makuha sa akin ng artikulo na to or nababasa ko sa mainstream media or sinasabi nila? Kung ang reaction ay galit, ibig sabihin, huwag kayong magdalawang isip, merong agenda behind it kung bakit kanila ginagalit. Diba? So, the important thing is yung pragmatism should really be something that people should practice. Lalong-lalo na in a very heated political situation that we are in. And part of our advocacy here at Istoryang Futbolero is to promote voter education. And you can't be thoroughly no, you can't do that if you are not thoroughly informed and you don't make better decisions when voting for candidates for the 2022 elections. And isipin na natin, wala na, foregone conclusion na yung CPP and PA, nangihina na sila kaya sila nanggugulo lalo. Ang opposition are very desperate to beat this administration. They want to get back into power. So anything that you hear, that you feel, that's making you react, you have to think, what are they trying to do? And before you react or you say something on social media that might hurt a person as innocent as Nas is, na gusto lang tumulong, ay pag-isipan muna natin, bakit ba nila ginugulo si Nas? Bakit ba nila ginagamit yung mga sinasabi ni Nas sa mainstream media? At bakit ba ginagawa ng mainstream media ang talking points yung sinabi ni Nas out of context? Doon pa lang, hinay-hinay muna tayo at pag-isipan natin na mabuti. Dahil if we develop that discipline as a group of people who are really in it for for changes and reforms, I think we'll be better off by the time 2022 comes, and definitely will make the right decisions in voting for personalities, people, parties who will be involved in government from here on in. So yun sa akin ikaw Ryan, ano masasabi mo?
Ang main key takeaway ko talaga is ito yung proseso talaga na kailangan ng mga tao. Uulitin ko na naman yung proseso which is take a step back, gather all the facts and the evidence, and then do an analysis. So number 3 is do an analysis based on those facts and evidence. And then number 4, that's when you take a stand. You take a stand after you've done your analysis. And then number 5, in case anything changes, biglang may bagong ebidensya pala, you have to change your stand. Change your assessment. So ganon. And we do that for everything. That's the kind of thing that forensic scientists do. That's what scientists do. That's what investigative journalists do. That's what everybody...
Responsible journalists do, like Dre.
Yeah, that's what everybody should do. It's a discipline. It's not about talino eh. It's actually it's a habit. It's a habit that you develop. It's something that you can learn. And even if you're not that intelligent, pero you follow this process, magiging mas intelligent ka than you were before, and you may even be more intelligent, end up smarter or have better results than people who are supposedly sobrang genius. Ang dami ko nakita na during this week, yung mga taong sobrang talino na nag-react na kay Nas, galit na galit kay Nas. May iba dyan, may PhD pa nga eh. But it's like, galit na galit and, ba't kayo nagagalit ng ganyan? Isipin nyo muna, totoo ba yung sinasabi? Yung sinasabi na tungkol kay Nas, is it true? Did you get the evidence? Walang evidence. So, and I'm not saying this to parang yung pinapanigan ko si Nas. No, pinapanigan natin ang katotohanan. Kung totoo namang mali si Nas, edi kondinahin natin kung talagang mali yung sinabi ni Nas. Pero kung wala siyang sinabing ganun, bakit natin siya kukondinahin? Diba? So that's what I'm saying.
Dre?
Yung sa akin for me, for the main takeaways, I want our audience, our listeners to ask themselves, how do they define and how do they understand exploitation of indigenous peoples? And that they should focus that whatever time, whatever resources that they have to help in the whole of nation approach of the National Task Force to end the local communist armed conflict. Because the exploitation of IPs is the CPP and the NDF making use of their children as child soldiers. And that is exploitation. So please let us be smart. We have limited time, we have limited resources, we also have limited attention. So if we are to devote so much energy, even if it is anger, even if it is rage, use it properly. So do not waste that energy and attention. And second, I would also like to ask everybody that you please remember to see with your own eyes, to know with your own mind. Do not just parrot and reshare everything just because some big names have been making their comments,
right,
and then you just parrot what they say. That's not part of independent investigation of truth. Just because
The
somebody
term
you follow.
the, the term I use, Dre, when I argue with sometimes I argue with friends of mine or teammates of mine who who are predisposed to saying things from the opposition's mouth. They regurgitate
Yes,
talking
regurgitate.
points.
They regurgitate and then they talk to an echo chamber. What's good
Yes.
about the DDS or the so-called diehard Duterte supporters is that we are not an echo chamber. Obviously, we are not in an
It's too
echo
big.
chamber because
It's too big
it's
to become an echo
it,
chamber. Masyadong malaki yung
it,
population.
exactly. That's a good thing about the DDS. There is no script. We are free to think, to investigate independently,
At saka
and
nagkakaroon
so
tayo ng clash sometimes internally.
Oh!
yeah,
Di ba?
yes,
Maraming
Min-
ganun.
yes. And yung third ko na point is it takes time to really unravel the truth. It really takes time. So in the same manner that people were so quick to react about the landmine blast that supposedly killed Keith and Molven Absalon. But in reality, it was not the landmine blast that killed them. All I had to do
Gunshot.
was it was a direct gunshot wound to the head, and there were many witnesses. And while people were sharing, even if I were not technically, dapat yung mga journalist na nasa Pilipinas, dapat sila yung mas maayos ang report, di ba? Kasi pwede silang pumunta sa
Exactly.
Masbate City. So, how come a journalist like me could trace all the witnesses, call them, find them on social media, and ask them for their statements? And then I released the photos. And then when it went viral, it took 2 months for the truth to be acknowledged. They died of summary execution. By the time that the truth came out and it was duly acknowledged by the authorities, diba? It was already 2 months later, and everybody who said it was a landmine blast, hindi nag-sorry.
Grabe, no?
And people do not understand that it's so difficult for a family like the Absalon family to grieve na people are saying, oh, we're praying for you and your family, pero you're praying for the wrong reasons. Because they were not killed by an accidental landmine blast.
No.
So,
No.
dito tayo
Executed
mag-ingat. They were summarily executed. Pinadapa, binil sa ulo. That's how they died. Not because of any landmine blast.
Yeah.
So, ito yung agenda setting na sinasabi natin kanina pa. How the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, and the National Democratic Front are very savvy, very cunning, and very insidious in the way that they craft an agenda using mainstream media, diba?
Yes.
To either amplify a message or amplify an alibi, amplify an excuse, amplify a lie. But in the case of Das Daily, the case of Project Nightfall and Wang Od, the whatever the agenda may be, for me as a counterterrorism researcher, I will not ignore the fact that these two very influential foreign vloggers or influencers are anti-communists. So that in itself should make Filipinos ask themselves, what will they lose if they stop following Nas Daily? What will they lose if they stop Project Nightfall? They will lose the perspective, the global perspective of other anti-communists who are helping in the National Task Force to end the local communist armed conflict. Yun yung bottom line eh. So,
Yeah.
we have, yung conclusion ko dito is, good politics, di ba, is addition and multiplication, not division. So, if their goal is to divide us, di ba, divide and conquer, if that is their goal, wag na tayo makisawsaw.
Tama.
Diba? Kasi, all the time spent on bashing Nas Daily and bashing Project Nightfall, alam nyo, mag-beauty sleep na lang tayo para gumanda ang mga kutis natin. Tapos, mag-beauty regimen kayo during the COVID-19 lockdown sa Philippines. Kaysa nangaaway kayo ng inosente.
Yung ano
Kaya-
yung
Yun
beauty
lang aking message.
yung beauty regimen ni Orion is hindi niya ginagawa ngayon kasi wala siyang chippy. At saka
Wala akong chippy tsaka Coke eh. Usually,
wala siyang
chippy and then Coke. Hindi ko na dala eh. Hindi ako nakabili.
Dre, maraming salamat sa
Deliver
sa
ko
iyong
kailangan sa chippy.
Yung red chippy pa man din ang gusto ko.
Yun, naubos yata.
Deliver ko
Wala nang
kailangan
stock
sa
dyan sa ano.
chippy. Piatos
Wakaganahan.
lang yun ko, piatos.
Hanggang piatos
Piatos
ka,
ka.
ma'am.
Ako kay chippy ang ako agad. Wow nga.
Dre, mayong gabi sa inyo. Thank you so much for joining us here on Istoryang Futbolero. Much appreciated yung point of view. And we learned a lot from our conversation with you. Definitely, we've known for a long time already that most of yung mga kaguluhan nangyayari sa ating bansa, may kinalaman din diyan yung mga parties working behind the scenes, and they've been doing this for like decades. So we have the oligarchs, we have the CPP-NPA, lahat yan mga nanggugulo, trying to control government. Naputol na si Dre. Maraming salamat, Dre. Thank you so much for joining us. Naputol lang yung kanyang connection.
Ay, naputol.
Oo nga eh. But Orion, so ito na. I think nandiyan na siya. Let me see if we can get her back on for one final word.
Mga goodbye ng sa lahat. Oh.
Mga goodbye. Maraming salamat kay JV, Adrian, John, even si Art na kanina pang nagtotroll sa atin dito, si Rob, Pants. Also, we have a few people from the other group. Si Rodolfo Lendio is also watching us. And wow, daming viewers ngayong gabi. Si Rob Palvorosa.
May nakita nga ako dito si John David, naglagay siya ng Soyuz Nerushim Republik Svobodnya.
Galing mo. Nababasa mo.
I can read Russian. I can
You can read Russian.
I can read Russian.
Jesus. What can't you do, Orion?
I can't read Korean.
Si Lopez Jason, maraming salamat rin sa pagkinig sa Istoryang Futbolero. Ayan na si Dre. Dre, thank you again for joining us, and we really appreciate it. At least na anuan mo kami na you graced us with your beauty and presence dito sa Istoryang Futbolero. At malamang ang isa rin sa mga tinatanong natin mga viewers, ano kaya mga tattoo ni Dre?
Para yan sa special viewing.
Special viewing ba yan?
Mas secret
Appreciation
pa siya
viewing.
dun sa mas secret pa siya dun sa secret nilang traditions.
Tinatanong ni Adrian Tepes kung may TikTok ka ba daw, Orion? Ikaw, Ma'am Dre, meron ka bang TikTok? Nagti-TikTok ka ba?
Masyado akong dangerous for TikTok.
Wala na akong oras to have more than Facebook eh. Parang it's already hassle na nga siya to have, 'di ba, Facebook, tapos you have to keep on posting. Kung may isa pa, 'di ba, parang
Another social media platform,
trabaho,
medyo hassle na yan. Medyo busy to si Orion.
busy ako sa
Daming
trabaho,
there are more important things.
Favorite ko lang sa TikTok si Crizette at saka si Jam Magno.
Yan. Yung dalawa na yan.
Okay na yun.
Ayun.
Kaya na nila yung TikTok universe.
Pwede na. Kaya na nila yan. Dre, sana you can join us again one of these days. We appreciate you joining us here on Istoryang Futbolero. We'll catch you again next time. Orion, so reminders lang, no? Hindi pa tapos yung pandemya. ECQ po tayo ngayon sa Metro Manila. Ay wag po tayong pasaway kasi that's the only way we can prevent this new COVID strain from spreading. We have the Delta variant that's more contagious. Kaya dapat ang gobyerno, they've taken, extra measures, no, to prevent the spread. So don't forget to wear a mask. Iwas, hugas. Pag lumabas, kung kinakailangan lumabas, ay wag ninyong kalimutan yung extra precautions kahit na nabakunahan. At wag po tayong matakot magpabakuna kasi the more people who get vaccinated, the sooner we will overcome this pandemic that we are experiencing with the rest of the world. So, Dre, Orion, that ends Istoryang Futbolero. Teresita, Romeo, yung iba pang mga nagpapahabol dito at saka yung mga OFWs na ikinig sa ating programa. Magandang umaga, hapon, gabi sa inyong lahat. And thank you so much for watching the program. That's it,
O yung
folks.
Teresiata Archer, ano yan? That's spammer yan.
Spammer ba yan?
Delete mo yan. Delete mo yan.
Delete,
Tanggalin. Delete na yan.
Ibagsak ang mga spammer. Good night, everyone. Bye.
Alright. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. See ya.
Bye-bye.